Hello, welcome to Cineverm, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria, and today I'm joined by David
Hello.
and Helen Albee Cottingham.
Hello.
And this week we are discussing the 2021 film Titane, written and directed by Julia Ducournau, and it stars Agath. I forgot to look up how I pronounce her first name, but her last name is Roussel, so Agathe Roussel and Vincent London. And here is the synopsis. Following a series of unexplained crimes, a father is reunited with the son who has been missing for 10 years. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and then after our ratings, we will dive into a full spoiler discussion. So I guess I wanted to start this conversation off with you, Helen. This is one of your picks that you've chosen for our slate, and it is a film that is very historic in Cineverm history. It is a very huge, important film to the podcast because it is famously, this is written in textbooks and on our Wikipedia page.
Definitely.
This is the only episode that we have officially lost due to my part of the recording being lost in the ether somewhere in the digital space between man and computer. And it was a 2-hour full blown. I remember it being my favorite conversation that we had.
Yep.
And it was
really
just
good.
all lost and destroyed.
Oh no.
And it was haunting and traumatizing. It was its own horror film of the
Yeah.
challenges of us trying to figure out how to fix it. There has to be a way. And I guess just for any other podcaster out there who's gone through that, it is heartbreaking. And especially when it's a movie like this, which for me was such an important movie, such a huge first watch for me. So yeah, I just wanted to lay that out because if some people might see, there's going to be another Titane review. This is going to be called the re-review. That's in our feed, and then that previous episode, we just recorded 2 little separate parts of us talking about it non-spoilery, and mashed that into a little 20-minute episode. So that's what that is. This is our full new discussion. So finally, we can right the wrong that happened in the past. But with all that being said, I guess I wanted to start with you, Helen. What did you think about this movie? It is a very renowned and I guess not renowned. It is a very controversial movie, I feel famously, won the Palme d'Or. So yeah, what were your initial impressions of this movie?
I mean, I was really excited to watch it because of all the Oscar buzz last year and just go down the list of all the film reviewers on Letterboxd that I really respect and really look to. All loved it. And this movie gutted me. There's no other way to say it. I was not ready to be made to feel this way. I feel like it is... I've seen a lot. I'm not a wuss about horror movies. My favorite horror movie is It Follows. Sexual content doesn't normally disturb me. I watched Fire Walk with Me without flinching. I've seen Martyrs. I've seen Inside, which is about a woman who literally stalks and murders a pregnant woman. I have a really thick skin about this, and somehow this movie was the most disturbing movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And freaked me out and broke my spirit in a way that a movie never has before. And I guess that's a tribute to the artistry, but I wish that I could unwatch it. I don't know how to feel or what to say. I don't think that I can be really objective about it because it just triggered a specific near-death experience that I have had, and it got under my skin in a really profound way and has had me feeling in a really dark place since I watched it. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say right now. I found it profoundly disturbing.
Yeah.
So
you said you wish you could unwatch it. Now, does that cement it as a bad piece of art? Because that's a question
No.
I've always wondered. If something does offend you or trigger you or mentally hurt you, does it make it in I guess
No.
your perspective bad?
No, I don't think it's bad art. I think it's good art because if something can emotionally affect you so strongly, then that means it was effective. It was effective art, but I couldn't handle it. I
Yeah.
was it was not something that I was prepared to grapple with, and it blindsided me. And I don't know if there's a answer. There's no way to fix that. There's no way to, I mean, because you can't have a like laundry list of trigger warnings. Like that would be so tedious. Like
Yeah,
it's just like
especially
it
in
was,
this movie.
yeah, especially with this movie. Like there's just no way. There's no way anybody could have known or warned me. So how? Yeah, it was just like it was made. Like this woman knows me and knows what
Mm,
scares me, and made it specifically targeted at me. Like it just cut me right to the bone. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that art should be affecting, and art should be powerful, and it should be visceral. And I think horror, especially, that's the point of it. And this is, I can
yeah.
see why everyone, like horror fans that I know, are like, that movie was significant. That movie was original. I've never seen anything like that. And yeah, I mean, because, yeah, it was the most horrific thing I've ever seen, bar
Mm,
none.
wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I
And
guess
yeah, I've seen Martyrs. Like, this horrified me more.
interesting. See,
So,
I obviously went through my like barrage of podcast listens that I had done previously. And yeah, a lot of people brought up Martyrs, and it's a movie I really want to watch now because now I'm just like insanely intrigued. I understand that's like a totally different kind of film and perspective and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff, but a lot of people brought that up in a lot of the commentary. But I guess leading off of that, what did you think of this watch, David? Because this is a second watch for you. How did it play better? Did it play worse? I remember you liking it the first time, but I don't think you raved about it to the extent that I did. So, did it get better or worse for you this watch?
I kind of stayed the same. I really like it. I really liked it the
Okay.
first time. It's spoiler alert. It's not a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's still like a
Mm.
really, really good movie. Like I loved her first movie, Raw, and I love this. This is my jam. Like this is the type of movie that I really love, where it's as it goes along, you really don't know where it's gonna go, and it's just constant. I remember the theater experience being just. I was like, man, finally, I'm in a theater watching a really good movie, like a movie where I'm totally engaged, not rolling my eyes
Yeah.
at anything. Like I don't know where this is gonna go. It does scare me. Like I don't know how far this movie's gonna go. I don't know what it's
Mm.
gonna show me, because in the first 30 minutes, it's gonna like, okay, this movie could do anything. It gives you that
Yeah.
feeling, which is scary when you're watching it, but also like really exhilarating, because you're like, all right, this filmmaker is not gonna hold back. She's just gonna do whatever she needs to do to tell her story. So yeah, I really, really like this movie. And I also, just because I like movies where it's sort of any movie that has surrealism or magical
Mm.
realism kind of elements to it, where you just feel like imagery is being used like as metaphors, and it's really dreamlike, and you
Hmm.
can just tell it's really meaningful to the filmmaker. Yeah, it's just I love, and the performances are great. Just the fact that this is an original story, as far as I know,
Yeah.
like she just direct, and did the director write it? That's something I don't know off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
She's the
yeah.
writer.
So yeah, like it's crazy, like the stories that in her first two films that she has come up with. Like she's just one of those filmmakers. I'm super excited to just see anything that she comes out with, because all of her films seem super meaningful and unique. Even though you can see her influences, but she combines them in a new, unique, meaningful way. So, and it's
Yeah.
not also another thing about this movie that I feel like I should point out in the review section, or something that struck me this time watching it, was that the story is despite the horror elements, like the story is actually really sweet in a way, in a weird way. Like,
Mm.
that word
Yeah.
kept coming to my mind, especially near the ending. And the closer you get to the ending, I'm like, this is such a great combination of horrible things, and like the character going through like the darkest stuff, but then in the end, it is a really, yeah, it's like a really touching drama about this character going through this particular time in her life and this transformation through love. So yeah, it's just a great Phil, that's all I can say. I'm just
Yeah.
going to keep raving about it if I don't make myself stop.
And that's like a part we have to like really control is like the spoilers, because yeah, the movie is just so, and at least in my opinion, so like inherent on like keeping the surprise, at least for that first watch. And that's something I worried about on this rewatch, because like it's like I'm trying to think like of another movie I rewatched multiple times to see if it stood up, was like Parasite. Like I was really worried, like, oh, after I know it's gonna go down, because it felt like the whole movie was based on that, and I was like so happy and so excited when I watched it last night that this movie, it almost like showed a second skin, and it like everything that I loved the first time just strengthened in like a weird, unique kind of way, to where like you're just looking for the like the sub meanings. Yeah, you're looking for the cracks, but then it like reveals itself even more to where like, oh yeah, this is like concrete in its own ideas, and it is like absolute in its attitude and its tone. And just like one thing I just kept thinking about like while watching it was about like Drive, and how like I feel like I didn't really get to say a lot of the things that I love about Drive in our last review. But one thing that I didn't get to mention that I can mention here, because it's the same feeling and reaction, is like the dichotomy of ideas and things. Like the there's always like this dual thing happening. And for Drive, it like almost like this masculine version of this movie, where it's just these two battling ideas cannot coexist. And it's almost like the drama and the tragedy of that. And in this film, there's also that idea of like two things that are like almost like battling each other. And not to get into too much of the weeds, but like just the themes and the ideas and the, I don't know, it's just like it's like a movie that plays in like this gray area that like kind of disturbs me, but then also excites me, and then also like I don't know, it's just like it's almost too much. Like I was realizing at this time, like she almost has too many things going on, like thematically. Like you can like I was watching the movie and I just kept thinking like, oh, this is about this and this is about that, and like this is tying this into this, and then like there is so much interconnection, to the point to where like I started to feel insane, and I was like, oh my god, well like this is literally that, and it worked on multiple layers and levels, and like all the themes kind of work, and it was just like so insane to me, like how strong of a writer you have to be to make all these like shotgun blast of ideas of whether it's gender or sexuality or love or violence, all these things just collapsing, but then it can still have, like you said, like a narrative at the core of it. And that to me is like just a huge testament to like her writing ability and like the craft that she's working at, to where, like this is what I wanted from like Cronenberg, whether it was like Videodrome or Crimes of the Future, where like, man, I would just wish I had something emotional to like latch onto. And whether you agree with this, like it being about love or not, like there is still like a core narrative that I think works independent from all the genre stuff.
I just
and they
realized
both like
she's kind of like halfway between David Cronenberg and David Lynch. Like she because it's like I noticed this time the movie has some kind of dreamy elements that don't really make logical sense, but just make sense while you're watching the movie. So yeah, like she has kind of that Cronenberg doesn't have, but she also has the body horror raw stuff that David Lynch doesn't have. So yeah, it's a really interesting mix.
And then I would add like a third layer, which is like the quiet emotional warmth of like Drive, like how that movie plays with music. Like I think I told you, David, I think I told both of y'all like in the review for Drive, like this movie, the way it has songs like playing throughout the film, like the songs, if you listen to the actual lyrics, it's like another level of commentary. And she was like so like specific about it that she wanted the lyrics to time out during certain sequences of the scene, to where she even like edited stuff out. Like there's 2 one-shots in the movie, and one she like cut to not be a one-shot because she wanted it to fit the lyrics. And I was just like, oh my god, that's like that's just insane to think you want that. And like no one would ever pick that up, because it's so like subconscious. Like no one would actually try to think that unless she like went out and said it. But then knowing it just plays so much better, and it just like proves my like whole idea of like why I love Drive and why I love this, is that like they're both about characters who can't really talk and they can't really emote and they can't really say the things they want to say. But then you have these like cool musical set pieces that is just them like emoting through in this film, dance is a big proponent of that, but the music aspect of it, I think, just really like heightens it and brings it out. But I guess me and David have been rambling a little bit. Like, did you have anything to add to our takes, Helen?
I mean, I didn't especially enjoy the music except for Future Islands. That scene was definitely the best in the whole movie, that sequence to me. It was like drowning and then getting to be on an island for a little while. That part with that song, I love that song. I love that band. That was the only sweet part of the whole movie to me was that part, and everything
Yeah.
was pink,
Mhm.
and all the interactions between her and that guy seemed gross and scary and disturbing to me. Not sweet at all, except for that part. And so yeah, that felt like a different movie. The sequence with Future Islands. It felt like a music video made for that song, and it was perfect. And it was I mean my breath caught in my chest, and then this scene ended, and I just started drowning again. And none of the other music stood out to me at all, really.
Ah, dang. Well, that is actually like this movie introduced me to Future Islands, which I owe like a great amount of debt to. Like, there's very few
Yeah.
movies in my life that I've watched and then I've discovered a band that like can take me to a place. And like this band and
I
that
love
song,
them so much. Yeah.
they literally take me to an emotional zone. And like I don't know, I just like I can never forget the movies that introduced me to an artist like that. And it's just so like ironic because like I've always been anti songs in movies, and just watching two of the two testaments in my mind back to back, it's like, oh my god, like maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe it's just like only certain film, like you have to do it with purpose and design and like intention and at least emotionality, and to understand the artist as well. Like you were saying, like it, like that visual sequence at least did fit into the feeling of that song. And that's hard to do. Most people do it the opposite way, where they want a song to slap over the visuals, where this felt like she knew the song and she like loved it intensely to where I know what this looks like emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's like really beautiful to see. But yeah, so I guess we need to, just to talk about some of the technical stuff before we get into our ratings and then go into spoilers. I guess I wanted to ask you, David, what did you think about like the performances this time around? Did anything stand out or get better or worse to you?
Oh man, like just again, I remember I mentioned this in the first review because it's just so crazy that Agatha Roussel, like, this is her first. Isn't it true that this is her first movie? Like,
Yeah.
she was kind of an unknown.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane. This is like a movie or like a role like someone would, like a really seasoned actor would do to like rebrand themselves or something, like, or just show off their acting chops. Like, it's kind of insane. And then I think Vincent Lindon, like, he, as far as I know, he's a pretty experienced like French actor. Like, he's been in a lot of things. Like, he's and it's crazy that she and him have such good chemistry like throughout the entire movie. Like, they're really, I don't know, I just felt like they were really in tune with each other, like acting wise.
Yeah.
And the scenes that both of them were in were just always super interesting. Just the way they were reacting to each other and stuff. So yeah, I guess that stood out.
The Agatha Roussel part is like a huge thing, because she was just like an Instagram person. Like, she just found this on it. Like the director, just scoured Instagram to find the right kind of look. Like, in a lot of interviews, she was talking about like she didn't care if it was a male or female or transgender. Like, she just wanted someone to look a certain way. And then when she found her, she was like, all right, she's the one, and we're gonna make it happen. And it's just so insane, like the amount of like physicality that she performs in this movie to be like just brand new. And then like to hold your own against Vincent Lindon, who is like supposedly like this huge veteran French actor who was just renowned all across that film industry. And this was the first time I saw him, and I think like this is bar none like one of the best supporting male performances I've like ever seen in a movie, because he I don't know, he just goes so hard into his character to where, like you feel everything that's happening to him. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like like Nightcrawler or something, like where you have to play a character that's you don't know what exactly to feel about him or for him, but then you like know immediately that he is this like person, and I don't know, just everything just feels so raw, like on the surface, like just how he like looks is also like very interesting. Same thing with like Russell, and I mean all the characters. So, like this is like the thing I really love about like films like made in Europe or just foreign films in general. Like there's just always like interesting faces, and like both of them were just like two people that I would never imagine in like an American film. Like if they were to do an Americanized version of this, it would be like whatever. It'd be like I don't know. It'd just be
Yeah.
horrible. It'd be like your average, like one of the Chris's, and then
One of the
I don't know.
Chris's.
You know, like
one of the Jennifers, one of the Chris's.
yeah. But yeah, I guess to get into the ratings so we can hit the spoilers, Helen, what would you rate this movie out of 10?
I don't think I want to rate it. I don't want to be a downer. I'm already a downer. I'm glad that I was able to give y'all a reason to talk about this again and fix that wrong that the universe did y'all for taking your episode away. But I can't be objective about this movie. And I don't think I can get through this whole episode. And I just don't think I'm ready to talk about it. So yeah, I'll be getting off the call soon.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging around and giving your impressions of the film. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Helen.
Bye. All right. So, David, I guess we'll start with you. Or actually, yeah, we'll start with you because now it's just me and you. So
Let's start
We'll
with the
start
other guy.
yeah, let's start with the other guy. What would you rate this out of 10? You already said it's not a 10. So how much lower is it?
How much lower? I saw that I had it rated an 8, and I bumped it up to a 9 this time. It's very close to a 10. It's just not. It just doesn't have that. There's something that it just doesn't quite have. I don't know what it is. Yeah, but it's so close. It's very close. Hey, her third movie could have it. Wouldn't put it past her.
Awesome. Well, I think my rating. This is obviously a 10 out of 10 for me. It was the first time. It is even more the second time. I guess just to like wrap up a little overall statement for this film. I mean, I kind of already said everything I wanted to say in this non-spoiler section. I'll just save it for the spoilers because I feel like there's a lot we can dig into and talk about and think about because it just has so much and so many layers to discuss. But yeah, I stand by the 10. It's one of like, in my opinion, I think it's just like such a amazing film, and it's just such an amazing like piece of work to like fit alongside, like, you know, you talked about David Lynch and Cronenberg, and I talked about Drive, and just like all the, like how you're saying, all the influences. And like I just think it's so amazing how brave and extreme and raw and potent and like confident of a movie that this is. And just like from it's only her second film, and then it's also like, you know, the whole film is playing with like the idea of genders and stuff, and just me listening through a lot of her interviews, and like she's always like, whenever she gets a chance, you know, it's like don't see me as a female filmmaker, see me as a person making a movie. Like that is what I am, you know, don't like subcategorize me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's just amazing that she was able and pulled this idea off at the scale that she's working on, because there are so few female filmmakers. And just like me thinking about it, like in my, like I obviously have way more privilege than she does, but like even as a male or a straight male, and then but also just like me being Mexican or whatever, I just can imagine like there's like that subconscious pressure of like, because I'm X, Y, and Z, I have to make something that fits within that box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this film like shatters any ideas and preconceptions of like what kind of movie to expect, like going into. And it's so subversive, and like there's a lot of people who hate it that are women, and there's a lot of people who hate it that are men. And it's like, it's not, you know, the film doesn't fit in a box. And I just love that she's that kind of filmmaker that is just like, I don't care. Like, this is what I wanted to make. This is how I feel about it. And then it's just there, you know, it's just like plopped in front of you. And I don't know. I just love that aspect. And like, those are the kind of filmmakers that I absolutely love, that are just so, like, they're just so confident in their own ideas. And they're just so, and that's how you get people like David Lynch and Cronenberg and just so, and even like Tarantino and like all these other directors, like they just stick by what they think is cool because nothing is cool until it is, And I feel like this film could have easily had a bad reception and could have like tanked and bombed or whatever, but it's just so cool that she was able to pull it off, and then a majority of people resonated with it to such a level to where it's exploded, and now like I'm excited to see like how you said like where her career goes, because it's like fuck, you made this with like no money. Like, and kind of restrained a little bit, so like imagine what you can do when the gloves are off. So
God, this doesn't feel restrained at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's gonna conclude our review portion.
Oh wait, can I say one thing? Sorry, one thing that just came to mind, which is this is it seems unrelated, but our last review, Barbarian, like it just struck me so much, like how fucking like wimpy like American R-rated horror movies are. Like this is an R-rated movie. Barbarian is an R-rated horror movie. It's just so crazy, like to me, how wimpy like the movies like that are compared to this. Like this is horror. This has actually horrifying scenes in it. I don't know, maybe it just and it's just like it's still got the R rating. It's not NC-17 or whatever. Like I don't.
Yeah.
So it's oh god, that just struck me this time just because we just did that Barbarian review. That like don't pretend to be an intense like, horror movie when there's movies like this out there. Like no, don't even try.
Yeah, and that's that. I'm glad you brought that up because we will dig into that a lot into the spoilers. So I won't say everything here because I wanted to bring up Barbarian. But yeah, like that point is so like that is such a great point because it's like that happens so much with like I don't know. It's just like I don't want to just say just broadly like foreign filmmakers are just at another caliber, but there is something wrong with American cinema. Like there's just something inherently wrong, and then it's just so weird when like a movie like I already forgot the name of it, Barbarian blows up and it's like has all these keywords that I would put onto this film, like and it's just so, and then like how you're saying like wimpy, like there's like the like I don't know, there's something about like certain filmmakers where they make a movie and it almost feels like they are willing to kill themselves to make this movie. Like in every kind of way, like they're willing to kill their reputation, they're willing to kill their prestige, their pedigree, their respect, their like image. Like this movie, like if it would have gone wrong, it would have gone really wrong. Like everyone would have said she's a disgusting, gross. You could even say like you can take all the metaphors and themes in a bad way. Like in a lot of ways, like how Helen, like this movie disturbed her and bothered her and was a horrible experience. Like there was probably a lot of people who felt that, who felt like this is hurting me, and like this is a gross piece of art like that maybe shouldn't exist. Some people could say that, and there was like famously walkouts, people who like vomited and like fainted at cons, and it's just like I don't know, it's just so amazing that like this can still get made, and that is like the thing that excites me, like because this is the new generation. It's one thing for David Lynch to do his thing still, but then it's another thing to have a new like offspring, that is their own thing in a lot of ways, and like she's that, and it's like, oh my god, like we're gonna have her for generations, and she's gonna evolve past the previous generation, and that's exciting because like I don't know, there's not many new directors I'm actually excited about. Like I was thinking about like I've kind of lost my love and luster for Ari Aster and Eggers and like so like a lot of these people that everyone's really excited about, they've kind of like died down because their second or third films have been kind of not diluted, but it feels like lesser,
Oh
and
god, I hope she doesn't go like do a Northman and like get a bunch of money to make some epic big movie, but then like lose the intimacy of her first two movies. God, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I haven't even looked up what her next thing is gonna be, but yeah, I hope not. But yeah, still, it's very exciting. But yeah, so that's gonna conclude the review portion because we gotta get into spoilers into this thing. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now, and while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, comment, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, And visit cineverm.com for our canon list and written reviews. And also check out my other podcasts, Headset Chat, a weekly game news show, and Read Drink Talk, a tipsy book club. And check out my YouTube channels, A Lonely Critic, where I do solo reviews, and A Lonely Gamer, where I do long-form Let's Plays. And lastly, check out the Movies for Decades podcast, where Helen and her brothers, Colin and John, discuss films through the decades. But now, let us get into the spoilers. Oh my god. So, there's so much to talk about. I just wanted to talk about like the big parallel of like Drive that I felt. I can't remember exactly what she's wearing on her jacket. I want to say it's like a lion. But like this movie begins and it's like this one shot and the main characters we see her from behind and she's wearing this jacket and she's walking into this like I don't know, underground car club thing, and it's something like I just thought about. I was like, "Oh, this is like such a beautiful kind of introduction to this character," and like it's all like it. I don't know. I just kept seeing like the inverted reality of like Drive. Like this is because if you think about it, the Drive character is kind of a murderer, like serial killer.
Yeah.
Like
when you said that made a lot of sense to me. I hadn't thought about that.
And then this is the same thing. And one thing I didn't get to talk about, and I guess brief spoilers for Drive. I don't know. I don't think there's really much to spoil in Drive. But like the thing I didn't really get to talk about in our review for that was the dichotomy of like the reason I love Drive, and like I just can't believe I'd never said this in the movie. The core idea and reason and theme that I love about Drive is that it's about a man who doesn't really want to be a man. That's how I see the movie. And because he wants this like calm, warm life with this woman and this kid, like he wants to be that. But in reality, he's this driver and he's this violent, like pushed to the limit, he will kick someone's head in until they're a pancake, until there's nothing but pulp. And, in the movie, this is referenced by the scorpion. And there's that little fable of the frog and the scorpion. And it's about a frog a scorpion asks a frog to cross a lake. And the frog says, "No, you're going to sting me." And the scorpion says, "I'm not going to sting you because if I sting you, we're both going to drown." And then the frog is like, "Oh, that makes sense." So the frog lets the scorpion get on its back and they start floating across the lake. Midway through the lake, the frog gets stung by the scorpion. And while they're drowning, he's like, Why did you do that? Why are you drowning us? Why did you sting me?" And the scorpion says, "It's who I am. Like I can't not be what I am." And it's that like it's almost like as and the metaphor that applies to Drive is like he at any point he could walk away and like run away from it all and be with her. But like there's this like manly aesthetic about him where he's like, I have to protect her. I have to die to make sure she's safe. Like I cannot run away with her. And it's almost like the same kind of thing that happens in like The Northman where she's like we can just float off, and he's like, "No, because I am a man, I have to go fight this guy on a volcano." It's like that kind of like
Naked.
thinking, and it's like and it's like self-suicide, and and like how it fits and parallels with this film is like that's the gender norm. Like that's what we're all brainwashed to think is like as a man you have to do X, Y, and Z. And that's like what I love about that movie, and that's like the theme for me that works is like he's a reluctant like male figure, but then he doesn't really die at the end. We don't really know, but like that's the tragedy of it. And like in this film, it's the inverse, but with a woman who is like seemingly doesn't want to be in her body, and she doesn't want what she is, and she's like unemotional, and she's like traumatized and damaged by all these men in her life. Like the movie starts with her father essentially giving her a traumatic brain injury and this metal plate, and it's like there's like just successive like horrible people in her life. And then it's like the her father figure that is played by Vincent Linden is like that is the man that can help her come out of this. And then now she is also faking as a man or like becoming a man to hide or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know, just the two ideas of like she can't be both things, and like she's always either one thing or the other thing, but neither things are actually her. And it's just like, I don't know. And then it's the tragedy because she dies at the end, and I don't know. So I just like really related to that, like watching this, and it like made me feel things, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is, and I just like a perfect dual like back-to-back movies to watch, Drive then Titane.
Yeah, that is a good double feature. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
said so much that I don't even know how to respond to
I'm
so I
sorry.
feel like we're just gonna have to like jump in like scene by scene to kind of go
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah, we'll just start with the beginning. Like, there's obviously the beginning with the car accident that kind of briefly explained.
Well,
She's a young girl.
you just said
Or,
something about the car accident. Like you said, or you implied that it was like the dad's fault. Like, did you, is that how you interpreted that?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't
Because
really
at any point,
watching it this
the,
time. And maybe you're right. Like maybe I feel like maybe you're right that the movie wants us to interpret it like that. But I don't know. Like even watching it again, I was like, it's the dad's just kind of doesn't like her and is like annoyed by her, but he doesn't really cause the accident. I mean, it is her that causes the accident. So I don't know if that's just something that is it totally intentional or is kind of a little confusing, like theme wise, depending on how you're interpreting it. But I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
I don't know, but I guess you could say obviously her father has done damage to her through how he treats her. So I mean that's
yeah,
true that he has given her damage. He has given her
yeah,
traumatic brain injury based on how
yeah,
she turned out as an adult. So yeah, I guess you could read it as a metaphor for that. Like his
yeah,
maybe she's acting like that because he's ignoring her. I guess
yeah,
that's like the
yeah,
best way to interpret that. Like this, but they could have shown something. Sorry, I'm nitpicking, but like they could have shown something else to show that even when she's not being annoying, he doesn't like her and is ignoring her. I don't know. Or maybe I'm
yeah,
just a
yeah,
toxic. I'm a toxic bro saying that she's annoying. I don't know. Maybe she was just being a normal kid. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
I don't
think
know.
I think she was being a normal kid, and I think like at least in my perspective, like one, it is totally his fault because I can't remember exactly, but he looks back, right? Like he moves his eyes away from the
Yeah,
road because he's trying to put her seatbelt back on. So like that caused the accident. Like in technicality, you looked away from the road
I
and then
suppose.
swerved. So like if you have a kid in the back, like why don't you just pull off to the side and then fix things?
I
It'd be like
Yeah, I
checking
guess
your
it's that
phone while you're driving
yeah,
and then blaming your phone.
he got so annoyed by her, I guess, and he let
Yeah,
his like annoyance, yeah, make him do something stupid, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
think it's weird because the film just immediately starts with that. So like I can see your perspective as well. It's like it's not enough. But the thing I like is like after that we
Yeah.
see it like forever. Like there's the scene when she gets back from or she wakes up in the morning at her like parents' house or whatever. Like they don't even say hey to each other. They don't look at each other. And then I don't think they actually even have like an actual like conversation about anything besides when he's like checking her stomach. And then there's this weird, and this is gonna make it like the third film, or maybe the fourth film.
Oh
I can't
no.
even keep count. But there is, in my perspective, there is like an intense subtext. I don't know. This is what I read this time. Maybe I'm just like my flags are off because we've seen it in so many movies now. But like the
Yeah.
way, because he's checking her stomach,
Yeah.
and then she grabs his hand and almost like moves it more downward, and then he's
Yeah.
kind of like grossed out by it or whatever. And like I don't know if it's him that maybe has abused her, or like there's something in her to where she thinks everyone wants something sexual out of her. So like I don't know where that comes from. Like maybe it's because like it's that's kind of like implied throughout the whole film is like in her mind, like someone liking you means you have to give them sex or you have to give them some sort of pleasure.
I
Even like
mean,
just to jump all the
I
way to
think
the end, like
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say like that's why like this time it made sense why when she's about to give birth, she's like kissing him on the stomach and all sensual, and then kisses his lips. Like that's her. Like there's people who like I was thinking about like Taxi Driver or like there was another movie. They Were Never Really Here with Joaquin Phoenix. Like there's
Hmm.
those young women in those stories who have been like prostituted through sex trafficking, and like that's almost like their immediate reaction to someone. Like I remember in that movie with Joaquin Phoenix, like she immediately tries to like make a move on him, and he's like, "No, stop." And it's like there's like I just imagine when you're in that kind of cycle of trauma, that is like what you have, like you just do it, because it's just subconscious at that point, because that is your means of survival. And like I don't know, I really like read that in her body language and how she acts and performs like throughout this film when she is like challenged by someone. But yeah, so that's why I think like maybe the dad was doing that before all this, like before even the metal plate, or I don't know, like, because like where did that come from? And like I guess it kind of implied that like metal plate, obviously caused some brain damage. So like
I don't think. Yeah, I know other people like have mentioned that, but I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think it's implying that he has done anything like that. I think it's just that. Honest, I read the thing where the scene where he's checking her stomach. I think that's just. Honestly, this time when I read it, I was like, oh, like he's just a doctor. Like that's why the mom is like, oh, have your dad whatever examine you. I think it's just because he's a doctor, but then that's never mentioned again, and it's not an important part of the story. But I think that
mhm.
scene was just to show that she just wants any attention from her dad. So like
Yeah.
he's doing that, so she grabs his hand and is like, oh, it's a little like she just wants him to touch her, like just in a
Yeah.
just she has no connection with her dad and she really wants one. And I guess you could
Yeah.
interpret the first scene like that, like in the car, like she's just desperately trying to get his attention when he
Yeah.
doesn't give her any. And then I think that her being overly sexual with everyone, I literally think it's just her trying to get some kind of intimacy, like trying to create some kind of
Yeah.
relationship with someone, but then every time she does it, I don't know, she gets scared of it also. It's like that class, like she wants intimacy but she's afraid of it too. So
Yeah.
it's just take that idea taken to the extreme. So all of her
Mm.
intimacy is like sexual, and then her fear of that is like, I have to kill the person
Yeah.
in order to get rid of this uncomfortable feeling that I'm getting from this fake intimacy. I don't know, because that's the
Yeah.
whole, and that makes sense of the weirdest part of the movie of her killing all those people. Just, I don't know, she's just going on a rampage, like she's in a bad place. It's just like an extreme way to show someone who's like that, who like severely lacks intimacy and is like looking for it in all the wrong places and is going overboard trying to get intimacy, but is just getting all this fake whatever, just people wanting sex or whatever. Anyway, that's my
Mm.
reading of that.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I noticed that because like in our original review, like I hated the first 30 minutes of this movie, and I still disliked it to an extent because it's a different tone, and I prefer the later half of this movie's tone. But I did like what you were just saying. Like it's almost like she is. I forgot what term it is. Whichever one is like a person who lacks emotions. Like is it psychopath or sociopath? But like you truly
Hmm.
cannot feel like emotions in your brain, and I think she is that. Like I think her character is that. And then like the fantasy of this movie is that someone who is the inverse of that, which is like immediately meets you and is like, I will kill anyone who hurts you, including myself. And like that's the first,
Yeah.
big proclamation he gives to this person. Like that is like intense love. That is like beyond it. Like I will kill myself in front of you right now if that's what you want. And that is and it's just so interesting having these two characters who are the exact opposites, where like you were saying, like it's almost like as soon as she starts feeling something for someone, it's almost like, oh, now I have to kill them because that's what people do, right? It's like now I just need
Yeah.
to stab her in the ear because that's what I do now. And it's almost like there's no actual thought, like because like the whole scene that happens in the house, like the mass murder, like it doesn't really seem like she's having fun or that she actually wants to do it. It just feels like a job. And I felt that this time because she gets so exhausted and she's tired. And like at first it played for laughs, but now I saw it this time like this is just like another thing she does, just like when she dances on the car. Like it's not even like she's enjoying it because she's being sexualized or whatever, but it's just like an act that has to be done. And that I don't know, that's an interesting I like thing that I noticed this time. But I guess like how did that beginning half play for you? Like does it still hold up as like a favorite part of yours?
Yeah, I like the whole movie equally more, I guess, this time, but
Mm.
I still do like I equally like the first part and the last part, but I like what based on what you were just saying. I feel like I don't think she's a psychopath. That's what I was gonna say. Like I don't think
Yeah.
she's. I think it's just like an extreme depiction of someone who is just can't handle any intimacy. I think it's just
Mm.
yeah, I don't think she's like, because she does show a lot of feeling near the end, and in order for
Yeah.
her not to kill, the scene where she doesn't kill Vincent, I think is her. She's it's because she feels something for him. So I think that
Yeah.
it's like her transformation from kind of a fake psychopath to just letting go of that and becoming a different person. And then
Yeah. A
her
real
dance.
human.
Yeah, she becomes a real human being and a real hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dancing on the car, or that stuff, and I think I mentioned this the first time we watched it, was that I feel like that is her taking her trauma and trying to fetishize it, which a lot of people
Mm,
apparently do, or at least people have
yeah.
theories of that a lot of fetishes are just people taking trauma and turning it into something pleasurable. And I just think that's what's happening with her. It's just her fetishizing her trauma and making it something she could be sort of like own, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I think this time, God, I realized big thing that I realized that didn't really like her whole pregnancy thing. It's because I think it's because that's working. Like the car thing, the dancing, she has sex with the car, whatever. Like I think it's almost showing that her whatever method that is of like fetishizing her trauma is actually working, and the pregnancy is like her new self starting. It's
Being
like
formed.
her new self forming and being born, and she's like super resistant to it. She tries to stop it, but she can't stop it because like it's
Yeah.
happening. And by the end of the movie, I like she's a new person, because I remember the first time I watched it, I was really not satisfied that she died at the end. Like I thought that was kind of a little bit of a letdown. Like, oh, she went through
Yeah.
all this stuff and then she's dead. But it's metaphorical. Like to me, she didn't really die. The baby is her, but it's just about her
Yeah.
being reborn. Being able to be loved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be vulnerable. Like that's the main thing. Babies are vulnerable, so she can be vulnerable now without killing people. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I just
Yeah.
don't know why I didn't quite click the first time I watched it, but all of this clicked this time I watched it.
Yeah, I totally felt that too. And like that's something that I found a lot of people didn't like is like her just dying. But yeah, like even like the director in a lot of interviews has said like that's her, like she's reborn. And like it's hard because, we don't normally see, at least I don't know. I'm not a student of horror, but like just from the body horror stuff that I've seen, it's a lot of male kind of protagonists. And like this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the first real body horror movie about a woman, about womanly body horror elements. And so like, like Videodrome, like he dies, but then he's like alive or whatever, or like there's like other, like where they die, but then it's like implied they're born into the new flesh. And like I think this is directly tied to that heritage of Cronenberg, like that, like you're not like the character isn't really dead because they were always just an idea. Like the whole genre, in my opinion, of body horror thus far is like it's all about the evolution of humanity, and where theirs is very focused on technology. And I think that's what I love about like this whole, like she's using the metal because that's what the forefathers have created. It's all about the electronic and the metallic and all that kind of stuff. And it's like the character's obsession with that is like, I want to be more than human, because she feels like inhuman in some sort of way. And then it's just like the irony of, she has to go through this like metamorphosis with the metal, with technology, with the future or whatever, to become like more than what she is, which she was damaged, and now she can be something new and reborn and rebirth. One interesting thing that she mentioned in an interview that I wanted to bring up, which it's like kind of obvious because in the movie, very early on when she arrives to the fireman, the fire camp or whatever, where the firemen work, their base. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called. The fire station. I guess
Station.
yeah, the station. There's that like just a beautiful scene where Vincent Linden comes in and all the people are talking crap about her, and he's like, "I'm God and this is Jesus." And the director, says like that's my favorite line in the whole movie because she's not only Jesus, she's also Mary. And it's like the
Yeah.
whole film is just flopping. It's like switching. Like now she's Mary, now she's Jesus. Now she's Mary, now she's Jesus. Now she's Mary, now she's Jesus. And then for her, the ending of the movie is those two ideas and kind of things colliding into one. And then what is born is this child out of that, is the metamorphosis of Jesus and Mary combining into one. And it's like that religious idea or aspect or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, that's like fucking insane. Like, and then like she even like said, like the scar on her head is meant to look almost like a little crown. And I was like, what?
That's
So
cool.
I don't know. There's like a lot of like cool, like all different kinds of ideas, like whether it's philosophy or religion or gender norms or societal norms. Like she's mashing them all into one, and then you can pick at whatever thread you want, and it kind of works. So I think that's just so awesome. And then it
You
just
know what?
blows my mind because like
Oh.
they say it in the movie, like he says, "I'm God," and this is Jesus, and it's like, oh, well, duh.
You want to know like another really duh moment I had like watching this the first time I watched it. I kind of it's kind of bothered me in a weird way, the whole fireman thing, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's so random. Like I hate movies that are too random where they're like, what if we just took these three random elements and made a movie out of it? But this time I was like, wow, I am so stupid, because obviously it's fire and firemen, because like what is fire a symbol of, like in everything? Like it's a symbol
Mm-hmm.
of transformation, so like
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's going to be that, and it's going to be like a fireman who is the person who's helping her through her transformation. Like he knows fire, he knows transformation. So I was like, I don't know why that didn't even occur to me the first time we watched it. I just thought, oh, that's
Yeah.
such a weird random element like to put into this movie. But no, like it's probably purposeful on her part,
Yeah.
if not just
Yeah. Yeah.
subconscious. Yeah.
Yes, so many. Oh my god, there's like so many like the like the visual motifs. They go throughout the whole film and all the way up, and it's like all fucking. It's crazy. So like the car she's dancing on is like covered in flames.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then like God, there's so many other scenes where like fire is always used like when someone's about to die or it's like a traumatic flashback. But then it's also like the idea of like there's like one idea that I kept thinking about is like how there's like this general idea that like women put out fires in like the relationship, like a man does whatever and blah blah blah, and then the woman kind of like is behind the scenes putting out fires, like, oh, you didn't take the kids to school, you didn't pack the lunch, like that kind of idea. And I just thought that was interesting because like a fireman, quote unquote, like man, is like putting out fires, so it's like the opposite of that idea. And then it's like this woman is like in the beginning of the film is causing fires, literally causing a fire and burning a house down with her family. And it's like she is causing all this damage to people. She has been hurt and damaged, and therefore like she is just putting it off into the world. And it's kind of like that like metaphor of how like if you were to if this movie were to have a male main character, like if she would have been a male and then try to impersonate a woman and do like just gender reverse it, like this movie would be like such a subversive kind of look, because like she's essentially like your typical like young male who is a serial killer or who does whatever like terrorism act onto other people like that are innocent in all technicality. Like that's literally her, but it's just gender flipped into a woman. So like you immediately see it in a whole different way. But it's that kind of idea. At least that's like what I read from it. And it's like, how does someone like that? How can they come out of that? And then it's like, oh my god, I just think it's so amazing because it's like the opposite. She has to like she starts fires, she kills people, burns her family, and then she goes like, what are the chances that the place she goes to hide is a damn fire station? And then like the scene where it really tied directly in was when the first time she has to save that old lady. And I was like, oh my god, like this is literally a movie about a fucking serial killer psychopath. And she saves someone, and then like just the way it's shot, the way Vincent Linden stares at her, like they have like an actual connection of like father like son, like
Yeah.
we are connecting over something that we both love and that she doesn't know she loves, which is like that's the first time she's actually brought someone back to life. Out of
Yeah.
all the people she's murdered, she brings this old lady that she didn't care about, didn't even know 5 minutes ago. She brings her back to life, and then she's in the back of the ambulance, like smiling. Like that's one of the only times we see her like happy, and she's like feeling a thrill. And like maybe that is like how you're saying, like the fetish of killing someone gave her that adrenaline rush. But then you realize like the opposite can also happen. When you save a life, you can feel that rush. And then that's like, the beginning of her growth and her change. And it's like, and it's all within this fire station where it's like how you were saying, like fire can create, but it can also destroy. So it's like the perfect metaphor for dual ideas. And then like with the Vincent Linden character, like there's that, kind of towards the end where he's like catching himself on fire, and like he's always painted in red. Like the first time we see him like shoot up steroids, he's like bathed in this red light that does not exist in that bathroom. And it's like that kind of like cool, like Dario Argento kind of idea of like shooting color just such an extreme way. Like I don't know, it's just like the idea of fire, reds, pinks, purples, dark blues, like those are all colors of fire at different degrees or intensities. And I don't know, it's like all over the fucking film. I was like losing my mind. I was like, holy fuck, like this is like, there's directors who do Easter eggs, and then there's this movie that is like, holy fuck, like every single element I can like kind of tie it all neatly in a bow. But then it's like it wasn't obvious the first time, and it's like the more I look for it, the more it's there. And I don't know, just crazy.
I actually, the color thing, I kind of interpreted different, like that weird purple color, because that's throughout the film, like the weird purple blue color, and it's like a really feminine color to me. And I just like how she's always puts that color on like the super supposedly masculine scenes, like the scene where he's flexing in the mirror, the scene where all the bros are dancing. Yeah, like it's like she's just trying to. I just read it as like an ironic thing, like, oh, like she's trying to show how whatever, it's her thing like that. And this is one of the things about her, like I don't think everything is meant to be easily interpreted. I feel like when I started thinking about this movie, the more I thought about certain things, I realized I couldn't put it into words why it made sense, but it just made sense in like a dream logic kind of way. And it's stuff like that where I like, there's not a clear thing that you could put logic thing why she's doing what she's doing, but she's just doing it. Like the gender bending stuff, especially like this time. Yeah. I'm like, this gender bending stuff, it doesn't really fit into anything logically. Like, I don't know, maybe you got something really straightforward from the gender stuff, but I feel like she just puts it anywhere she can in her movies, because that's just a really interesting idea to her, like the fluidity of gender. So she just, any opportunity she has to put it into a scene, she does. And there isn't like the most concrete thing I could come up with the gender thing was just that it's interesting that she had to make herself or she felt like she had to make herself a man in order to be accepted by anyone. Like that's her desperate move to be accepted, you know? Well, I guess she does it just, honestly, she just does it to go into hiding at the beginning, but it's kind of like she doesn't immediately reveal herself. It's like she has to be a guy. In the logic of the movie, she has to be a guy in order to be accepted, she thinks. But then that's what makes the ending so beautiful, is that she says her real name and he just accepts it and like repeats her name back to her, and it's like that's him accepting her for who she is. He doesn't care who she is or what gender she is. Like he's committed to her, and it's really cool. I didn't find it disgust like that's the other thing I want to ask you about. Like, did you find him creepy at any point? Because I think the first time that I watched this movie, I did find him creepy in his relationship to her, but then this time I didn't, maybe because I just kind of knew what was going on or where it was going to go. I don't think he's actually that creepy. Like, I think it's just the reason that maybe it seems creepy is that he's having this cognitive dissonance thing going on where he sort of knows that it's not his son, but he also is pretending that it is his son. So he kind of gets a little bit romantic with her before he fully accepts that she's not his son, which is a little weird, but I think it's just the part of his brain that knows that it's not his son and it's just a woman. So I don't know. How did you read that whole thing?
Oh my God. Yeah, you bring up so many great points. I guess to begin, the gender thing, I had a small thing I wanted to say about that because like I love how she talks about it in her movie, which is like she thinks it's like almost like hilarious and like just like I don't know, there's like this whole like I was supposed to write it down, but there's like this whole philosophy of we're at a certain stage of like humanity where, you know, a lot of gender stuff and like sexuality, it's all being like labeled and categorized or whatever. But that's just like, and then there's like this other philosophy that's like beyond that. There's like the transhuman, and then there's the like beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. And like, just like, it's like, it breaks my brain like thinking about it, but it makes so much sense when you hear someone talk about it. It's like everything we know is just like passed down. Like the whole idea of like gender being a thing that you have to play into or you have to be, it's all like just a societal concept and conceit, and like way smarter people have said it better and will say it better than I ever will. But like, that's what I kind of feel from this movie. And like that from a lot of interviews she talks about, like those scenes are just hilarious to her because it's so stupid. Like it's so stupid that these guys are like, oh, that's like, I didn't know Jesus was white and gay. And like, isn't he like, you know, everyone's looking at him like, are you a guy or are you a girl or are you just gay? Or like, you know, like just the constant labeling and relabeling that every person does naturally. But it's like, do we do it naturally just because we were taught it? And like, even, and then like, and like a lot of her concepts and ideas is like, it doesn't have to be anything. Like, this is just a person. Like, like the whole idea that people watch it and they get offended or they don't get offended. It's like, it's like, you're just trapped in a box as well. And this movie is just saying, this is just a person who is pregnant, you know, and like, she's doing whatever she has to do to be in this, like, for the narrative or whatever, like the happenstances that are happening. But I don't know. I just think it's so interesting because it's like beyond, like, I feel like there's a lot of movies nowadays and like the whole idea of like, you have to represent people a certain way. And like, if you really think about this movie, this is like literally a woman serial killer, which, I mean, just statistically isn't a popular thing or like that happens in like normal society. But then also like one of the reasons like that she talked about she wanted that is because like the whole idea that, you know, like I remember she talked about like she read this like analytical study that like took place in Paris where they asked like a couple 100,000 women how many, if they've ever been sexually assaulted or abused or felt in danger while riding a train in like Paris or something. And then you know, she picked up the study and she was like, all right, it'll probably be like 90%. And the study came back and it was 100%. And then that like really pissed her off because it was like, what the fuck? It was 100. Like it could have been 99.9%, and I would have been okay with it. But like 100, like you're saying, every single woman experiences that every day, and then like she's experienced it, so it made sense. And then she was like, why? And then if you think beyond, you know, immediately everyone would be like, it's all men's fault, which it is because it was a lot of men doing the harm. But then the next level of thinking is like, why don't women respond to that? You know, why don't they like hit them back or attack them? Or why aren't they violent back? You know, like, why is it like a one-way road? And then you can think of all the labels that are implied onto that gender, which is like, well, women are weaker, women, you know, are more sensitive, women are more emotional, like all whatever stuff. And then she got angry about it because she was doing that in her head. And she's like, what if I just write about a fucking woman who can fucking kill somebody? It's like, why is that not a norm? Like, I want that to be a norm, like women serial killers. And then it's like, that's such a like subversive kind of radical idea. But then it's like, yeah, because like if you don't write that, then that doesn't exist. You know, there is no comp, there is no like translation, there is no like imagery of a woman killing someone because she's angry and she has that power. Because I mean, in all technicalities, a woman could kill the fuck out of me right now, like easily. And it's like that, like, I don't know, it's just like the whole way she thinks about gender and like just all of it is just like so, it's just so interesting to hear like someone have just a different perspective, like nowadays especially. And for her to like be in her position and to like talk about that kind of stuff, like it can be dangerous to talk about anything really. And then like, I don't know, and then just to have it in her film and her just stand by it, and it's like, I wanted someone to like, I wanted a woman serial killer, I wanted that on screen. Like, I don't know why, I just want it. And it is what it is, you know? And yeah, so I'm like just fascinated by all that kind of stuff. And then yeah, like it, but then there's also like the elements, like the other scene that I kind of want to touch on that has to do with the gender thing is like when she experiences, you know, being a man in this like narrative, and even though she is made fun of and looked at weirdly by other men, they don't actually hurt her or attack her because she's still a man within a man's little group, right? Mm-hmm. And then, you know, there's that scene where she rides on the bus, and then it's almost like implied that this woman knows she's a woman, even though that
I love
you
that
know
scene.
she is hiding as a man. And then like I just how that scene plays out, and it's like that whole scene says so much, you know. And that scene is probably inspired literally by that little report that I talked about, that she was inspired by a lot of these events. And it's like, it's so telling. And this is where the movie becomes gray, because it doesn't give you an answer. It's not saying this is wrong or right, or like this is what you do, or this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're not supposed to do. Like she gets off the fucking bus, and we know her that she's capable. We've seen her kill multiple men, twice, 3, 4 times her size, and she just gets off that bus, doesn't help another woman. It's almost like in that moment, this character is like, I don't want to be. I don't want to be a woman, and I don't want to defend women. Almost in that kind of way, you know. It's like I just want to not. I just want to leave the situation entirely, and then it's just like kind of interesting where the film is almost in that kind of way. I'm showing you the reality, and I also don't want to be a part of it, and like I also just want to be in my corner and just choose my own path. And it's like, I don't know. It's just like that's just kind of an insane thought, because any other filmmaker or any other writer, you know, would have her kill those three guys. Like that would have been so easy for someone who's killed so many people. But then like she doesn't, and she goes back to the fire station and decides to be with her adopted father. And like I don't know, there's just like so many things where there's no real answer, and like the whole film just doesn't really give you all the answers. Like, and it's just so, I don't know, it just like it like kind of drives me crazy, but then it's also like really exciting, because then I'm like, why? And then I don't know why, and then I just keep thinking about it in like a loop, because like there has to be a reason. What's she trying to say? And then I don't know, it's just awesome. I said a lot of shit. I don't know if you had anything to comment on that.
Yeah, the bus scene. Like, I read that more as just that she wants to go back. Like that's her the promise of someone actually caring about her is so strong that's why she leaves the bus. Yeah. But I really like this, like the subtlety of that scene where it's no words are spoken between her and the other woman, but just their facial expressions. It's like a whole story of like she looks over there, like they look at each other, and then the lady eventually like realizes, wait a second, like she understands what this situation is, and we're feeling the same thing. And yeah, it's so cool how that's done. And then she's like, wait, that's weird. What is this person, this obviously a woman, but is pretending to be a guy that's sitting next to me on this bus? And then she just gets off. But that was a funny, and then the humor thing, I just wanted to see the scene where she dances on top of the fire truck is like the most clear example of what you were talking about, that she just, how the director just thinks it's so funny to play with, you know, gender stuff. Because that's that scene in a nutshell, pretty much. And it is the funniest scene in the movie. And honestly, it's like one of the best scenes in the movie, because it just kind of summarizes what the director's trying to do with gender. And I just love the variety of facial expressions, reaction shots of the guys watching. Like there's all variety of reactions, and I think she probably gave them directions like, okay, you're really conflicted, like you're disgusted, you are turned on but you don't want to admit it, so you're turning away, and then you two are just like transfixed and you love it and you're not even trying to hide it. So it's really cool. It's like you can tell there's all the different possible reactions to that gender confusion that's going on. So and what's cool, I was watching it with my girlfriend, and that was the only scene where she was like, got uncomfortable. It was like, oh, this is weird, or like she turned away, or like didn't want to watch it, didn't want to keep watching it. And I thought that's so interesting. Yeah, because it is, I'm sure a lot that caused that reaction to a lot of people watching it, because it just makes that gender thing so weird, you know, like is this sexy, or is this attractive to me, or is it not? Is it weird or disgusting to me, or is it not? You know, it brings up all that stuff.
Yeah, and there's no clear answer on what you're supposed to feel, like as an audience, or because it's so confusing, because she's kind of muddied it, because it's a woman, you know, not actually, you know, she's not actually like transgender, like she's not actually
right,
you know, she isn't like actually wanting to be a male out of her own, or she isn't actually a male, but she's being a male for the fact of like safety and protection, you know. And that's where I'm like thinking, like, if this would have been the opposite gender, like I think this film would have like gotten canceled. It would have been like just hated on, because it would have been like, oh, this man is just trying to act like this thing, you know? And it's just like so interesting that she's, you know, using that same idea in core, and then like just that's so awesome that, or interesting that you said that she turned away, because I think in the original review I mentioned I watched this movie with like 4 older people, all 4 of them. You know, they were all grimacing and like, you know, like, oh, you know, like just reacting to the movie like they were grossed out. And then I just thought it was so funny, because this is near the end of the movie. They watched this whole entire movie that was challenging. That's what I was,
and it's, oh my God, that's what I was thinking too. In my head, I was like, all the rest of this movie wasn't that objectionable to you, but
Mhm.
like this
And
scene
they
is the one that yeah.
and they walked out. And they walked out, and I remember like sitting there like so confused and shocked. And I was just like that is that severe? Like this is that severe to you? And it's just so interesting how like you can have a reaction where, it's funny because the humor of it. And then the director, that's one thing I learned, that she thinks this is hilarious. Like she even said like in the premiere, she was like probably the loudest one laughing, and half the audience was laughing, half the other audience was walking out or, upset. And it's just like so crazy. But for me, like my reaction was like I found it like so like almost cathartically like a release, like beautiful. Like I just thought it
Mm-hmm.
was so cool because she was like unafraid. Like this whole movie, she's trying
Yeah.
to be something and she's not. And then in that moment, like she knows this is like uh what is it, like your not career suicide because she doesn't have a career, but it's like like your who you are to other people, you're killing it right in front of them. Like you can like she can never go back from this point. It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like when someone comes out, there is no going back after you come out.
Yeah.
And what people are going to think and say about you, like that ends right when you come out because now it's out there. Like all the ideas and rumors or whatever. And like that moment was almost like this coming out part where she was like, I'm just going to do what feels right to me, and like how she moves and dances. And I don't know. I thought it was so beautiful, and like it makes like it made me feel emotional the first time. It made me even feel more emotional the second time because it was like this level of bravery. Because this could ruin everything for her. Like she could go to prison, she could lose her adopted father. Like all kinds of things could go. They could beat the shit out of her. Like in all honesty, they could have done
Yeah,
that
yeah.
too. And like it's just like I don't know. I just love that scene so much, and it's just so beautifully shot. And then like the dance and the choreography, and that's something I want to talk about. Like even in the beginning, like it's some of the like it's so weird because I'm not like into like sexy dances or whatever, but there's something like so weirdly sexy and like primal about how she moves in that beginning scene. And she does it again here where it's like very subtle movements, but it's like the most sensual, like feminine kind of movement, to where it's like almost like insanely captivating, to where you were saying like there's like two guys who are like transfixed. Like I felt like those two guys where I was like, oh my god, like this is like a moment of like artist performance, like it's beyond just I'm trying to strip dance or whatever. It's like this person's like revealing something about them. I don't know, that scene is amazing. And then also the previous scene to that where they're in like a mosh pit. This
That's
time
just
around, that
uncomfortable.
that
Yeah.
that scene, yeah, I was getting nervous, but it was also like it hit really hard. Like I don't know, for some reason I didn't remember it in the first watch, but this second watch, and like the doof, 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 doof,
Yeah.
doof, 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 and it was just like I don't know, it like gave me anxiety a little bit, and it was almost like flashing lights. So I was like, oh my god, I'm about to have a fucking
Seizure.
epilepsy or something or whatever.
I like that this
but-
time around. I was like, I was like, that baby's indestructible. I'm not afraid at all. That's like the most indestructible baby as we've seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that
and
was
that's the other gray area that I kind of want to touch on. And like she realizes she's pregnant, and then she immediately sticks I don't even know, like I guess it's a hairpin, but it almost looks like a very
Sewing
long
needle.
chopstick. Yeah, something.
Kinda
She sticks it inside of her to like kind of force a what is it called?
abortion.
Yeah,
Miscarriage?
abortion or miscarriage. And like that immediately, like it's almost like a body horror kind of freak out moment. But then she does it like throughout the whole film. Like when she's wrapping herself, she is like literally with the intention to kill this child. And that is like a hot topic in America or whatever. Like abortion and miscarriages and stuff. And I imagine it is in other parts of the world or whatever, but like it almost like it's like this gray area of this character because like even to where she's like about to give birth, she's still cranking on that bandage, like with the intention to like hide and like hopefully like kill this thing that's inside of her. And like that is a whole theme and message that like I don't even really understand what she's trying to say or like what I'm supposed to feel about it, but it's like this interesting gray area where it's like if she like I truly believe like this character would kill that thing if given the option until the very end. So I don't know. Like, what did you think about all that stuff?
I think it's just because the way I saw it this time around, it's just an extension of the theme of her, a new version of her being born, and she's resisting it. So I didn't really,
Yeah.
I thought all the abortion, like the abortion scene, all that stuff, I don't think it's about abortion. I think it's just about her really like realizing that she's changing and really trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
So that's how I read it this time. So that kind of takes
Yeah.
like the, like, oh, is this just like, is she just putting this in here to be edgy or like cringy or whatever? Like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's just more, it makes way more sense to me just through the metaphor of, yeah, self transformation.
Yeah.
That makes it a
And
little more forgivable also for her character of like how she's
yeah.
just constantly doing everything she can to kill this baby inside of her,
Yeah.
even to the last moment. Yeah.
But it's interesting because it is, something that happens in reality. There is a lot of women who do like unsafe miscarriages and abortions that
Oh yeah.
damage them as well. Like it could lead to their own lethal death. And there's a bunch of stories about that I'm not well equipped or intelligent enough on to comment on. But that's why I think it's so interesting that she goes for it. Like there is that reading that's possible, and like I do agree that like with your interpretation, that's kind of the aim. But it's like it is it's like a hot topic. It's like that's brave in itself to like plant that in there and just
Yeah.
leave it there. Because anyone can take that the wrong way or see it more grossly. But that's one thing I guess we haven't even talked about, which is this is like the thing I hate about a lot of movies that I love. Like Hers. Oh, a guy just falls in love with an AI. Drive. It's just some driver guy killing people. I'm thinking of ending things. It's just some stupid, like crazy guy that can't get over being lonely or whatever. Like people like minimize movies into like little one sentence like
Reducing it.
synopsises.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this movie has that same thing. So maybe that's like my like I guess that's like my thing, because all the movies that I love can be reduced to like little headlines that everyone can just toss away and like throw into the wind. It's like, oh, that's just some fucking weird movie or whatever. And this movie has that kind of synopsis readily available because everyone talks about like she has sex with a car. And then I guess to get into like what that theme or that idea is, like what do you take that as? Do you take that as like that's the car is the metaphor of her having to change, or
No, I think it's
what
just
is
like what I said earlier is just it's just her trauma, and it's her like overcoming her trauma and like transforming it into something that she actually likes and is actually pleasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what that is. But it is interesting that it's a car, which is it's cars that is something traditionally very masculine and like manly, to like be really interested in cars and obsessed with
Yeah.
cars. So that's kind of cool. I actually just thought of that in the moment, that's another little gender bending thing aspect of the movie.
intense. Like there's God, I forgot what it was. Maybe it was her, but she was like the two sexiest things to men are cars and women, and if you combine them you have the sexiest thing in the world. And it's like that introduction is her dancing on a car. And it's crazy because like I kind of like in my teenage years, like I kind of grew up around a car kind of group community. Like
Oh, yeah?
I was into cars, like the OG, like Fast and the Furious one kind of people.
Uh-huh.
Like before it went all action, like actual tuner heads and getting like JDM Japanese import cars and like all that kind of stuff. Like that is still something that I'm kind of interested in.
Yeah.
Not a fan of necessarily, but like I get it. Like I get the idea of like cars and like I understand. So it's interesting, yeah. Like and then there's something about the car culture is obsessed with like what is it? What is the word? Like it's like not representation, but like when you're trying to like be something unique, you're trying to damn, I don't know what the word would be, but like the thing that a lot of people don't get about like car culture, car people, is that it's all about showing yourself through your vehicle. Whether that's like the mods and customizations or like the engine like adjustments or like the tuning or like whatever you put in or take out of the car. That is like it's almost like a vessel of you. It's a reinterpretation of you. And it's interesting this movie takes that almost like in the inverted way, where like the car is like almost like this goal for her to achieve, to like metamorphosize with that metallic thing and create this new offspring is like the goal. I don't know. It's interesting, and like that's what I love about this movie. Like I can dig deeper into everything, and then it kind of makes sense in my head. Maybe I'm like a Kubrick, like how people watch The Shining and they like lose their mind. Maybe this
Yeah.
is my like.
It does seem, yeah. You're going down the rabbit hole, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Oh my God, you would, God, I feel like you would really like, or maybe it's just not quite your flavor, but like the other David Lynch movies, like
Mm,
Mulholland Drive and stuff like that just have
yeah.
like that, where you could just, oh my God, you could just for days just talk about what the heck this means. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely have to go deeper into that. But I guess another big scene we need to talk about, because this is another big thing. We kind of talked about it in general, but just to begin with the inception of it, like that first time I watched this movie, when Vincent Linden comes into the room, not into the room, but into the like police facility where they're holding her, and it's like, we found your son. And then they go through the whole interaction. Do you want us to do a DNA test? No, I can visualize. I know my son if I see him. And then that window shutter opens, and like just a great performance, because it's like you can interpret it either way. The
Yeah.
first time I interpreted that he did not know. The second time it was just like an immediate, like absolute 100%. This is not his son. And I was gonna ask you, like, what did you read it? How did you read it the first time? How did you read it this time? And what do you think? Do you think he knows, like from the get go, that this is not his son?
I think that I think most of the movie, it's both. Like he just has cognitive dissonance, and he is both. It's both at the same time. He knows it's not his son, but also he really wants it to be his son. So he believes that it's his son. So I think it is both. But then this time I was trying to figure out at what point does he
Realize.
get rid of that cognitive dissonance and just accept that it's not his son. I guess it's just that scene. I don't know. Even after that scene, though, there's the scene in the bathroom where her towel drops, and whatever, he sees her, but then he lifts the towel back up and like covers her back and says something like, "No matter what, like you're still my son. Like I don't care who you are, you're still my son." So I think even at that point, he's still trying to cover it up, but then I think there's a scene after that where, God, maybe it's not until the last scene, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It might not be until the very last scene.
God, man. See, that is such an insane feat to pull off. Like as not only as a director, but as a performer, like to sell that, like that. It seems easy because that's how it is in the movie. But I mean, how many movies have we watched where it's like, oh, I mean, textbook example, The Shining. It's like, oh, that's the villain. Like there's no doubt about that. And like him, it's like he like, does he know? Does he not know? Like why is he? It's like he is so like, just the performance is at such a caliber, and just I don't know. It's just it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't really matter, and it's just so interesting. Like it's just, I don't know, just a cool theme that in reality doesn't matter, and then it like plays into mattering when, like you say at the very end, he calls her by her name finally, and that's something like that's something I think about a lot. Like and like just rewatching it like all day, I was thinking about like how many people, and like this is kind of broad, and this is like the kind of shit this movie makes me think of, but it's like how many people like actually know you. And like I don't know if this movie is talking about that or saying that, but it's something like I kind of felt, which was like, we all play into these labels and into these ideas, and like gender can play into that, or just who you are as a person. Like who is David? David can be David is what you portray out, right? But then internally you are your own entire thing. Like you on the podcast is not actually you maybe off the podcast you're like, oh my God, like maybe you're excited, or you're like ADD, or maybe you're even like more quiet, or like I don't know, like it can be anything. And like this movie kind of plays with that, where, and I feel this a lot from parents. Like my parents, I don't think my parents know me. I don't think anyone in my family actually knows me. Like I don't think they could like gun to their head say anything that I would agree with that explains me. And that's something I think about, and I always try to like just lately, like I need to see people for who they are. Like let me not portray what they're giving me because I know they're faking, or I know I'm implying something on them. And it's like something I want to change in my life, and this movie makes me think about it. But it's like, and I thought about like how many people actually know me. Like I don't really think anyone actually knows me because I haven't revealed myself. And in that scene in the movie, it's like finally she reveals herself. And then normally people reject that. People reject, and that's what we see throughout the whole film is like she's acting as this boy, as this man, but she's actually a woman. And then like, well, she doesn't know what she is in reality. And then like everyone is trying to figure out, like that dancing scene is people not being able to like control, like, wait, what are you? What are you not? And what am I supposed to feel? What are we doing here? Like that confusion. And then I love how in that scene at the very end, the dad, Vincent Lindon's character, just immediately says her name, doesn't question. And it's like, I'm here for you now. Like whoever you say you are, I am here for you. And then it's like that previous scene that you talked about. He's like, I don't care what you are, you're my son. And it's again like, I don't care who you are, you're my son, you're mine. But then at the very end, he accepts her for who she is and who, the reality of that person. And I don't know, like I've just been thinking about it like all the time, like damn, I haven't really showed myself. Like I haven't really, been me because I've been hiding under all these like little figures and impersonations or whatever. And I don't know, it was just like an interesting thought and theory that like this movie kind of like plays with. I feel like, especially with parents, like I feel parents always like identify as like, you're my offspring and therefore you're this and this because I'm this and this. And it's almost played throughout the film. Like you have to be a firefighter with me because that's what I am. And that's like, kind of the typical parent son kind of dynamic is I am this, therefore you're going to be this with me. Come along or whatever. But what did you feel any of that, or what do you think about?
No, I like it. It's why the ending is so touching. Or I can't even think of another movie that really. I'm sure there are, but I can't think of one that has that to where it's just like, oh man, that's so nice. Like a character's just whatever revealing themselves for who they are, and the other character is just accepting them completely. It's cool. While something really traumatic is happening with the character, it's like on top of that, like that moment where he's gonna leave the room. And then he turns around and like doesn't leave and comes back to the bed. Like he thought about it, but it's like he's like, no, I choose to just accept this person. Like whatever's going on right now with them. Yeah. Like they're going through a bad time, it's really cool. That's why I like it. This movie's just like really touching and sweet in like a way that you don't see very often. But gosh, there's so much to say about that. For some reason, it reminded me also of the other dance scene where they're having dinner and then, he gives her the keys to go and then she turns around, and he's like turns on the music and starts dancing. It's almost like that's a cool scene too with this theme because he's like showing himself. I think he's like being vulnerable in that moment. Yeah. Which is also like a mirror of that later scene of her dancing. And like for a moment he's trying to be vulnerable, but then it like transforms into that weird like where they're just fighting and wrestling on the ground. So it's almost like he got scared. I don't know. He got scared of being too vulnerable and unmasculine. And so then he had to shift back into his whatever toxic masculinity, kind of like making it like a tough fight with his son or something, like trying to toughen him up.
we need to wrestle now. All of a sudden we sudden wrestle
to balance it out. So that was cool. And his whole, the other aspects of his character, like the steroid stuff and him working out, alone and getting so frustrated and angry and he's all roided up, and it's just him trying to be really masculine, but like in all the ways that don't really matter, and almost in the end, like he is more masculine in this is bad too because it's just kind of like gender stereotypes, but like in the end he chooses to take care of her and like protect her and stuff when she's being vulnerable, and like that doesn't require any steroids or any of that. It's like it's a different type of masculinity, I guess, that's not toxic.
And that's like the whole other aspect. Like there's this whole idea and theme of like femininity in this film that I can't really talk about because I'm not a woman, but that is like imbued in everything. And then we have this male character who, like you were saying, like through the steroids, right after he shoots steroids for that first time, he's trying to do pull-ups. He can't even do pull-ups, and he's just like so angry and fresh. Like it's almost like his character is like it's almost like chasing like a dragon, or like whatever they say, like heroin addicts or junkies or whatever. It's like you're chasing that high, and then as you age, it's almost like you inherently lose masculinity Because if the whole gender societal norm of masculinity is to be able to protect and to be strong and to like defend, like if you take all that to heart to a sickening level like he does, like that means my body has to look a certain way, and then he can't do it naturally, and then he resorts to steroids, which he seemingly have been addicted to and is just abusing for a long time before this movie even starts. Probably like at the beginning of him losing his son, which is a whole nother aspect of like a father not being, or like, because this is something I believe just in men inherently is like, I think men just inherently, I don't know, biologically, genetically, or whatever the fuck, like it's harder for us to get over things. Like that's something I've noticed, like in all the women I've been around in my life and just all the stuff that I've read and like think about. It's like men just generally have a harder time moving on. Like I've seen it in studies and analyses. Like I read one like analysis about like people who become unemployed, and it's like scientifically proven that it's harder for a man to switch careers or get another job. Like that is a very hard thing to do. Even if you don't like the career path you're in, it's very hard for like a man to be like, I'm not this thing. Because it's almost like there's a fear of change, and there's a fear of like, well, what if I'm not good at it and I have to start from the bottom? Like I'm already good at this thing. Like let's say you're a miner, and then your miner factory or whatever the fuck shuts down. Like I'm not going to work for McDonald's. Like I would rather starve than work at McDonald's. Like there's like this like weird masculine idea of like, I'm not going to be a bum. I'm not going to do that. But then
I feel like a lot of that's cultural too. You know, like a lot of that's just because culturally there's more pressure on men to be providers and be the breadwinners and, you know, I feel like it's mainly that. Like, I don't know. I don't think that is inherently is like biological, which, this is the whole themes of this movie is like, what is masculinity and femininity? Like, how much of it is actually biological versus just performative?
Performative, psychological, passed down. And maybe that's my trauma, that's my metal plate, is that I'm like inherently like I believe in that, therefore it's real. Like there's that whole concept of like, if you believe in gender norms, then you'll accept them or whatever the fuck. But then there's also like the element of his character who, like, I don't know, I wanted to ask you about this because like this time it read for me differently. Like I almost think he knows his son is dead. Like just by the like there's a scene where they're doing a simulation and he sees a young boy like in flames in a safe box. And I'm like, the son is dead. Like I don't know. There's just something like the vibe that he gives off where, because I interpreted this film a whole different way than you did. Like I immediately, like in that performance in the beginning, I saw him seeing her and knowing that's not my son. And then him thinking, like the way he looks down and he's almost processing and he looks emotional and he's like, this person is so fucked up. Like they are so down on their life that they're willing to fake that they're my son. And then I'm also, he's a suicidal man. Like just before this movie starts, I feel like that inherently he is a suicidal man. We see it multiple times, like just with the steroids and him catching himself on fire, drinking.
Yeah.
Like he is not a happy person. Like he's lost he lost his wife, he's lost his son. And then so for that second he's looking down, like I feel all these things and like I'm thinking all these things that he must be thinking subconsciously or consciously, where he's like, well, maybe I accept this person as my son, and then like maybe I can fix their life and they can fix my life, kind of thing. And I don't know, that's what I felt from that scene, and that's what I felt throughout the whole film, like with his performance. So it's interesting that you had like the opposite reaction to that. About his son. Like I believe his son is dead, and that's why that scene plays that way for me. Like because when he sees the trauma of his son, and like he's always saying like, no one can tell me you're not my son. But it's almost like kind of like the theme and metaphor of like how she's reborn. I think in his head, like maybe he's like a believer of like afterlife, or not afterlife, but reincarnation in some sort of way. Where it's like,
really?
I know this person's not my son, but they are like the spirit of my son.
Spiritually.
And like even like the weird circumstance of like her wearing that dress, and then he shows the pictures of the dress.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're my son. Look, you're literally doing the same thing my son did 20 years ago.
So you think, I don't know. I don't know. I still think that's just him. It's all just like he wants to believe. So he's like looking for any evidence, and
Mm.
he's just so
He's
desperate and in mourning. He's just like God. Him trying to like shave her face to make the hair grow. Like it's really sad. And
yeah.
I don't know. He's like trying to make her. Why would he if he thought that wait if he knew that it wasn't his son? Then I guess like why is he trying to make her into his son? He like shaving her head and like trying
Because
to get her
that's
hair to grow and all that
yeah.
stuff.
Because I think it fits with his whole like it's all like unspoken, unsaid. It's all performance. It's all performative. Like him taking steroids is like the same kind of thing. Like everyone thinks I have my son back. We're gonna make you my son. You're my son. I got to take these steroids to be this godlike figure in this fire station. I think it's like that kind of like I don't know. It's like people who do bad things and they convince themselves it's for a good reason or something. It's like
I mean, God,
ignoring the factual evidence. Like this is not your son, but then he's like he knows that consciously, but then he's also like I want everyone else to believe, and that's why he's always like, "Don't talk about my son. Don't say anything about my son." And he even kills that other firefighter guy because he kind of mentions it, and he can tell that he knows. And it's almost like implied, like everyone kind of knows, like everyone the way, like there's just like this energy of disbelief, and I don't know. It's just
yeah, I think
interesting.
everyone else like knows that that's not his son, but that's why I'm saying like he's just delusional. Like he just wants it to be true so bad. So he's trying to
Yeah,
make it a thing. Because I was thinking like he could have just taken her from the airport or whatever and like pretended whatever. Oh yeah, that's my son, and then taken her home and then just like taken her in like as Alexia, and just been like, I'm just gonna whoever you are, like I'm just gonna accept you, and then like not pretend that it's his son. But instead, like he just
yeah,
right, I don't know, like he right when he gets home, he introduces her to the guy like this is my son. Like I don't know, he really wants it to be true, but yeah.
yeah,
And then I'm like that adds to that like the first time you're watching this movie, that part you're just like because you don't know the rest of the movie is going to be about this. Like I was kind of thinking, oh, this is just going to be like a quick fucked up situation that she gets into, like oh my gosh, she gets taken in by this delusional guy and he's like locking her up and making her be his son and like she's gonna have to kill him and like escape. But yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
But I like how the movie
yeah.
panned out way better. I feel like a lot of people sort of thought that he killed his son. Like, did you get any of that? Because I don't think so. I didn't get
Oh
any of
yeah,
that. But
there's that whole aspect. Yeah, I think you asked about that and I didn't really answer. Yeah, there's that whole aspect if he killed his son or if he like kind of sexually abused his son. I think there's
yeah,
another element because he is very I don't know, this is the weird thing because like I don't know French culture that well, but even in the movie and just my general knowledge, like the like cheek kissing is a thing and like that is like a
yeah,
normal like
right,
kissing of around the face is normalized. Like when
right,
it's your son, you kiss him in the cheek, you kiss him on the forehead, you kiss him on the like eyebrow, you kiss him on the nose, you kiss him on the other
yeah,
cheek, you kissing his neck. You're like saying like, "Oh my God, you've gained so much weight." Like whatever typical things would happen. It just happens with little kisses around the face. So like that stuff. This time around, I read that as that because
yeah,
like it because when she is on him in pushing it to that next level, he is clearly and obviously an unmistakably I can't talk right now. Unmistakably disgusted by that. Like that's that final scene where he is willing to walk out of the door when she looks like she's about to die giving birth. And so like that makes me think that he is just like that's just the culture or that's just how he is as a father figure. I mean, there's even like people in like America like, oh my God, there's like this. I forgot what famous person. I think it was like Lil Wayne and his adopted dad, Birdman. They like kiss on the lips, and I was like, oh my God, that's fucking disgusting. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
so like I don't know what people do. Whatever people do, they do. I don't know, but I just know like I don't know. Just the way I read it this time with that ending scene in mind, I was like, okay, I can't believe that he's actually into her in any kind of way or into him as a son because he is immediately turned off and disgusted by it when he's given the opportunity to go further with that action.
Yeah,
So that
because she,
that kind of
yeah, that's like her thing. That's her, like we talked about earlier, like her thinking
yeah
that that's the only way that she can get love or whatever. I agree. I don't think there's anything creepy
yeah
about
because
him.
he's given so many opportunities to take advantage of her. Like even when they're wrestling, he has her kind of pinned down or in a
Yeah.
hold. Even I mean, there's so many other scenes, where she's locked in the room, like
Yeah.
and when she's changing nude, like he actually doesn't turn around,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
that is like a very weird thing to not like. I don't know. I just feel like someone who's sick would do that when they know they can get away with it. And there's so many moments where I think he could have gotten away with it as a perv
Yeah.
or whatever that
Yeah.
people are implying.
And I don't think he killed his son either, because he's just so heartbroken over it, and it's like still a mystery, and him seeing the boy in the fire, like I don't know, that's just like that's so sad. Like he's sad that his son is dead, so I don't think, or that his son might be dead. So I just don't think there's anything to say that he actually killed his son. That would make the movie worse if that were true. But.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's interesting too. Like she didn't go into more detail about. Like there's another question that's unanswered. Is like, so what happened to the son? Like this, what happened to their marriage? What happened to all that? Like, because there was like a part of me when watching this time, I was like, it almost feels like to me he became a firefighter because of the trauma of losing his son. Like it's almost like, how some people like they suffer whatever thing, and then they do the thing that person that they loved cared about or died from. Like someone dies from cancer and then they become like a huge cancer advocate, or someone dies from AIDS and they become a huge AIDS advocate. It almost like, and that's where I kind of think like, does he know that his kid died in a fire or something? And that's like his secret is that he knows the son is dead. And that's almost like why he became a firefighter. And it's almost like how some people are traumatized. I mean, shit, this correlates directly with your theory of her. Like she is like her obsession is with the car. Is his obsession with the firefighting and fire and saving people's lives is my son died in a fire.
But how would he know
I have to
though?
prevent that.
That's
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
It sounded really. I was like on like that would be cool. But then I thought, wait a sec. How would he know that his son?
It's just weird because like the only other scene that we get of this kind of like guilt trip thing is she sees the guy that he killed, right? Like like she sees him in a crowd or whatever when they're dancing or something.
Yeah, that was a weird.
He's not burned, and he's not burned up or anything. And that's where I was like, okay, this kind of ties with that other scene with Lyndon seeing his son. But the son is like obviously burned to a crisp. He could have just been sitting in that safe, Like it didn't have to be a CGI burn body corpse. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe he knows. I don't know. But then how would he know? I don't know.
I guess it's not super important to the movie, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's why it's not. But yeah, I mean, him. Yeah. Do you? I mean, the guy dying in the fire. Like, do you really think that? Do you think he murdered him, or it was just kind of like an accident that was convenient for him, and he just watched him die? Because that's kind of how I want to interpret it, but I don't know.
Because I'm trying to remember exactly how the scene went down. So he walks up to, and then one other thing we didn't really talk about is I love how all these fire sequences are shot. Like, I don't know, every time, because we, the first time we see it, it's on this like fake stage and it's like a simulation. So every time we see a fire, I think, oh, this is a simulation. That scene specifically, I'm like, whoa, this is like some hardcore fucking simulation right here. This is insane. But then it's real, and then I'm like, oh, like I don't know. It's a really cool effect that I don't know if it was intentional or not. But yeah. So he goes into that like RV camper, pulls out a propane tank, hands it to him, and then the weird directing choice that I found interesting is that we cut back to the main character in like a fire truck just sitting or whatever, and then we hear the explosion, and then when we cut back, he's on the ground, and I think his like face mask is shattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes over to, I guess he sees the corpse or whatever. I don't know. So it's interesting because we don't see the moment. Like we just see him hand off the propane tank, but it's like, did he throw his axe at the propane tank, causing it to explode? Did he release the nozzle? Like I don't know. There's so much gray area of like, man, what the fuck happened? And then I don't know.
I guess that's kind of maybe like she wants us to. Maybe the director wants us to feel the same way about his son dying. Like, was it something that he saw or did, or was it not? Like me, I don't know, but I just think I just like to think that he's a good guy, and he didn't kill his son, and he didn't kill that guy. It was just kind of a random thing. Now the guy did make. I think it was more just a magical realism kind of thing. Like that's really convenient that that guy was the problem, and he knew, and he was going to tell someone or whatever. And so how convenient that he got killed by an accident, and now he's out of the way. So,
And then like what purpose was there to get that propane tank out?
that's another great question. Like why they're going into a fire to go into a trailer to take out propane tanks, like and carry them through the fire. That is really ridiculous. I thought they were gonna go rescue a person in the trailer, but no, they're just taking out the propane tanks. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of read it as he did intend to kill him because it does directly play after the scene of the dance with him pulling up to the side. It's like I know about her or whatever, and then he's like, don't talk about her ever again or whatever, and we cut to that. And then like why would you get a propane? And then just like that interaction where he hands it to him and then he grabs it, and it's almost like it kind of defines his whole like relationship with all these firefighters. Like he's God. It's like if I give you a propane tank in the middle of a fire, you're gonna hold it. Like why I'd be like, why are we grabbing this? What are we doing? No. But he like grabs it and he stands there, and then you see kind of a couple seconds of him walking off, and then we cut back out. So I don't know. Like I don't think it's like, I don't know. Maybe it was a test. Like let me see how blind of a follower this kid is to me. I don't know. It's
interesting, though. But right before that though, he makes a comment. Like in that same scene, he makes a comment about his supposed son. Like when they're approaching the trailer. So I think it's he makes this little comment, like a snide comment, and then they do the propane thing. But I don't know. I'm watching the scene as we're talking, and I'm like, I don't know. I think it's kind of accidental.
Yeah.
But there's a creepy shot, but it's like the shot of him looking down at the body, but it's kind of the same ambiguous facial expression as when he sees the girl for the first time. Where it's like, well, you could read this either way, where the guy is already dead and he's just looking down at him, or he's watching him die. So yeah, I don't know. It's ambiguous.
It is interesting how that character is kind of like the supposed Jesus character. Like that's the true son before our main character comes into play. Like he is the like favorite of the fire station, and then there's that like challenge kind of jealousy element happening between these two people. So I found that interesting. And I liked all the firefighters, like how they looked. Like it felt very reminiscent of like my experience in like the Air Force and the military. Like they all look like people that would be in the Air Force with me, and like the way they talked and acted. It's like that like weird performative masculinity or whatever. And then like that scene that we talked about a little bit in the review with the song. And they're all like it's interesting because they're all dancing, and you have a kind of more feminine song playing over them, and then the feminine like coloring and lighting. Yeah. So it makes them look like it's a contrast. Like I remember in the first review, you talked about that scene and you found it kind of like funny because it's like almost homoerotic, but with these homophobic characters. So it's like this dichotomy of like two ideas. And then you just feel gray about it. It's like, wait, what is this saying? Like, is this...
What are these dudes? Yeah. Like, it's just undeniably kind of gay. Like, I'd say just to put it in a crude way. But it's just, it's funny. Like, it's funny that these bros just get together. I guess the second time they're together dancing, it's more like masculine because it's like a mosh pit.
But they're shirtless, and they're like techno. On top of each other, and they are...
Yeah. But that's just like a more realistic thing that like bros would do. But like the first dance scene, it's just like, this is kind of funny. Like it's just like a bunch of guys in a small room dancing together to this song under purple lights, and they're just chilling. They're just letting loose. No girls around. Like they don't even bring girls, like like we're having a party. No, it's just all the guys. It's just really funny.
Oh my God, that's another interesting element is like there is no women allowed in this fire station. Like I don't think we see a single woman after, she gets captured or whatever and taken to this place. So it's like it's almost the same kind of repression. It's like Yeah, I guess the word would be repression. You know, like when you're secluded to this environment
Yeah.
with just men and males and whatever, and it's almost like they can like not smell her, but like it's almost like everyone kind of knows because there's like a weird vibe, and I don't know. I find
She's
that
invading
interesting as well.
their masculine space. They can just sense
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And they're all like uncomfortable with it. Like there's something wrong and they don't know what. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I love how just the way she shoots it makes it feel that way. And that's so captivating. Because like any other filmmaker could have shot that your typical broy way and it would have just been like, "Oh, okay. It's just like a bro scene." But then
Yeah.
like she subverts it, and that's like the cool thing that I love, that she subverts it without like really telling you what anyone's supposed to feel. Like someone could laugh, someone could be disgusted, someone could be offended, but it's like either way it's subverted now. It's this weird concoction that she's formulated.
I like also,
yeah.
I noticed this time, like, I like that his bathroom, a similar thing. Like, his bathroom is all the pink tile, That's kind of cool.
Oh,
like, that's
yeah.
just a weird random decision. It's like his inner sanctum is all pink,
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
And then I guess one thing we got to talk about is the wife actually comes into play briefly. And there's that whole interaction with Lyndon and the main character. And, there's like one point where she grabs his hand and she's like, "This is my son. He doesn't talk. He's mute, whatever." And then we cut back and we go to a scene where she is like lactating oil. And she's nude and she's on the ground. She's having like contractions and in pain. And then this wife character walks in, sees her nude, all this stuff. And then, like, I found this interaction so interesting and beautiful because, she's offended and she's angry. It's like, how dare you fucking, like, act like my dead son or lost son? Like, do you not know what it's like to lose a child and all this stuff? And, like, she's talking to a pregnant woman. And then it's, like, just cool. Like, she is very, like, angry at her. But then also, like, almost like at a turn of a flip of a coin, she's like, "You need to take care of him and you need to like love him and all this kind of stuff and protect him and all this stuff." And I'm like, wow, this is like such a weird scene. Like it flip-flopped between intense hatred and to like intense like empathy because they're like I don't know. It's interesting because it's two women like almost at odds with each other, but then it's like they almost both understand something that only they could understand with each other. I guess like the pregnancy element of it all. So like she can't really like slap her or beat the hell out of her because she's a pregnant woman, and she's on the ground in pain. So I guess I was going to ask you about that scene because, she seemingly does not care about Lyndon's character and sees him as like a damaged, broken shell of a man. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a cool like gender moment, gender bending moment because she's telling her to like protect him and like take care of him. It's kind of like like she knows how vulnerable like Vincent really is and like how like you said, it's just like broken and like weak he is. Like he needs someone to come. He needs a white knight to come rescue him, like he's a princess or something. So that was a cool just moment of like acknowledging like this super whatever trying to be uber masculine guy like really just needs someone to take care of him. Or maybe he needs someone to take care of, and that's taking care of him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But however you want to
it's almost like he almost needs a purpose to exist. And that makes me think of, I guess, like one kind of the final things that I have to say is like that makes me think of like after the dance sequence on top of the fire truck is when we actually see him kind of try to commit suicide by lighting himself on fire. And like that almost reminds me of like previous to that, the only other time we see him kind of want to commit suicide is when he gives her the keys, she walks out, goes to the bus, and then he goes to the bathroom and like shoots up steroids at a large amount or large quantity or whatever. So it's almost like he wants to kill himself every time he loses her or the idea of him in his mind. And like I guess that was if we're reading your interpretation that he doesn't know it's not his son, that would be the moment that he finally realizes that's not his son. Is because he's going to kill himself because he's like, I don't have a son and there's no purpose for me. If you go into your reading.
Yeah, I like that makes sense. Yeah, that's why that actually because I didn't think about that. Why is he all of a sudden really depressed and trying to light himself on fire? It's like after he sees her dancing, it's like that just breaks the illusion completely. Like he knows that he can't he can't keep pretending that this is his son. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, and then what about the right after that? What do you think about her having like a last ditch effort to try to have sex with a vehicle, uh, with the fire truck? And like, what is that? Just her kind of? It's like her last desperate attempt to, I don't know, like hold on to her previous identity or something. I don't even know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I don't know. There was one podcast I listened to that I bring them up all the time, but Too Scary didn't watch. They talked about that scene. And they said I don't know if this, I mean, I assume it's real because they said it. They're three women. But they were like, some women, have sex like around the time they're about to try to induce labor, because apparently that kind of like cues up
Okay.
and like gets your body ready for labor or something. I don't know. I was like, what? And then they were like, yeah, maybe she was trying that. And they were like, that was their interpretation of that scene, was like, oh, she's just trying to induce labor or whatever. So maybe that's an
Huh?
element that I just have no idea about. But then
Maybe.
also, I think thematically it ties in with like, in the beginning she's a certain type of character, and she's has sex with that kind of vehicle that has flames and is like this masculine, dangerous kind of vehicle. And then at the end, she's trying to have sex with the antithesis of that, which is a vehicle that puts out fires, puts out flames, and represents protection and safety and like humanity and like saving.
Ah.
So I think maybe it's like she's finally coming to terms with like, this is the kind of thing I want to be, and maybe that also helps her induce labor. I don't know. I don't know. I will
Her.
say,
Mhm.
I've saved this for the very end because I do have a very strong issue with this movie, and I wanted to
Oh.
ask your opinion and see if you thought about it, because I thought about it the first time I watched it, and it bothered me even more the second time I watched it. But she is pregnant throughout this whole like endeavor, right? And she's like very big, like almost immediately she is like very large in her stomach, and she's wrapping it, and I can believe it, the first couple scenes where it's a couple inches or a foot or whatever, but then at the very end, like right before this dance sequence, she is huge, like she is like at the final stages of pregnancy, like she's about to give birth. And that final dance scene, when she's dancing, there is nothing on her stomach, there's no lump, there's no bump, and there's no bump or lump in any sequence or scene when she is acting as a male throughout the whole film. There's nothing. Like there's not even like the attempt at showing a bump.
Yeah.
And that really bothered me the first time, and it bothered me even more the second time watching it, because I thought that could have been a cool element of like, is she getting fat or is he getting fat, quote unquote? Like that could have been a cool tension element. Like why does he have a beer gut all of a sudden? Like something like that.
I think it's
And
just I think it fits with my, it's just a metaphor. Like it's just her being pregnant is just magical realism. It's just how, which I forgot to mention this just when we were talking about the mom being there, just how she doesn't make a big deal out of the fact that oil is coming out of her nipples and she's covered in oil. Like
yeah.
the mom just, and her belly is ripped open and there's a hole in her belly that metal is underneath. Like the mom doesn't react to that at all. So I feel like that's just a style choice. Just, this is all metaphorical. This is why none of the other characters really react to that pregnancy aspect of it until the only person, think about it, like the only person who sees her, like, well, no, that's not true. Well, wait a sec. I mean, there's no evidence that the wife or the mom sees her as pregnant, is there? Does she mention that? Because then you could say that the only, I was going to say something, that the only person who sees her as pregnant at the very end in the last scene is Vincent, and that's him accepting her as she is. So and like, I don't know, I just thought of that, like maybe that's all an internal thing, her being pregnant, and he's the only one that gets to see it at the end. So, he's the only one that sees her vulnerable. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because that's one thing I was thinking, like maybe she's actually not pregnant. Like that is all the metaphorical kind of magical realism like you're talking about. Yeah. And the end isn't really her giving birth to a baby. It's like metaphorically or emotionally or whatever whatever genre wise it is. But in reality, they're just laying together on a bed, like coming to terms with what they are,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just so weird because she's so big And then we cut to scenes where, like when she's giving CPR or where she's in the fire truck, she's dancing and just like completely flat stomach. And I don't know. It bothered me. It's not like a deal breaker or anything like that, but it's just something I really like. I don't know. Like if I could ever interview her, I would ask her like, why? Like you're so specific and meticulous about everything. Why didn't you show her growing when she's acting? Like at some point those bandages would not stop a metallic plated belly.
Nah, I think that is even better evidence that it's just meant to be metaphorical. Yeah. Oh man,
Right.
that makes the last scene so much. Sorry, I keep thinking about the last scene. Like, yeah, like he's like embracing the baby and like holding it, and he's like, "Don't worry, like I'm here." Like that's just it's so cool because he's embracing her, like the really vulnerable version of her. Like that's cool. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's an awesome read. And like, yeah, I kind of feel that as well. It's like finally he sees her for her. And they can actually like move on past all the shit, Like they don't have to act and play or whatever the fuck. Like they can actually just be real people, real human beings.
What a relief.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I think that's all the big stuff I have to talk about. Is there any other big scene that you can think of or moment that we haven't really discussed that you want to bring up before the big question?
Nope. I can't think of one.
Awesome. Okay. So obviously this is my personal canon. I am recommending it for Cineverm canon. Let me give my defense real quickly because I don't know. I have a feeling you're going to say no. One,
I'm open.
Body horror. I think it is a testament to body horror because it is, we have body horror and like it's been cemented as a genre thing. But to my knowledge, there isn't like a female womanhood version of that. And I think this covers that. And then it covers it so well that it's like almost multi-gender, it's almost like it covers everything because it's so open and fluid. And it talks about humanity in a way that is like beyond what we perceive. It's just beyond all those elements. And then the way it's directed, the tone, the pace, the surprises, the acting, the performances, the visuals, the music, song choices. Like, I don't know. I think it's a perfect film in my opinion. And I think it's like, if I had to pick gun to my head, like, all right, what is the perfect body horror movie? It'd be this. This would capture that genre. And then it captures it not only in its like tropes, but it captures it as an actual film because there's a narrative, there's a character, there's multiple characters, and it's all emotional, has a through line. It works without the magical realism, and then it works also because of the magical realism.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'll accept it as canon. Yeah. I just don't know. I just don't know what to categorize. I would put Videodrome and this like next to each other. They're like the masculine and the feminine versions of body horror together. It's like a perfect marriage of the genre. So I'll put both of them. But then, yeah, I'm just hesitant because it's such a new movie, and I'm like, oh, and also like, who knows what this director like? Who knows what her future movies are going to be? They might be even better. But yeah, I'll accept it as canon for now, for sure.
Hell yeah! There we go.
Let's put it in
canon. Official Titane. I love it.
That's exciting when we get one.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's it. I think that's gonna wrap up our talk here about Titane. So I want to say thank you, a big special thank you for Helen for covering the review with us and for picking this film because, like we mentioned, a very long extended mentioning of us losing this review and it being such a cool, interesting, very strange and can be off-putting and traumatizing and disturbing and disgusting film for many people, but then also beautiful and interesting and introspective and challenging to others. Like that's the kind of film that I think represents cinema to where it's like, it's all about your perspective and it's all about how you see it. And it's also, I don't know, it's just so multi-layered, it's like an onion. You just peel the layers and no matter what, it kind of makes you cry and emotional. So yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your rating or your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you could share us with your friends or family or cars, I guess, as that
your
helps
car
us.
friends.
Yeah, your car friends that hopefully are not having
friends
sex
with
with
benefits.
you. I don't know. Yeah. It would help us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. So we will see you next week, and thank you so much.
See ya.
Cinema.